Look, I'm like you. Every now and then I will start to lose my motivation from journaling, and I have to constantly do a few things that keep journaling interesting for me. And journaling's like any new habit, or any habit for that matter. Unless it is so deeply ingrained in your life, then other things in life will always be competing for your attention, and then the things that seem maybe less crucial kind of take the back seat, and journaling can be one of those things. So today I want to talk to you about how I keep journaling interesting and important in my life, and how I keep it going. Because the thing with journaling, the issue is that the benefit you get from journaling is a reflection, at least I get. The reflection, the insight, the clarity that comes from journaling doesn't happen today. It can happen today as you're asking certain kinds of questions, but the most of it, at least for me, happens either at the end of the week, end of the month, or even at the end of the year. So it happens further into the future, and that is a delayed gratification. So, and the only way to get that is to be journaling a little bit today and writing down those thoughts and ideas and feelings today. So I have to constantly, remember that, hey, the thing that I'm doing today, even though it seems hard, is important, because otherwise I won't be able to get to that nice future state of reflection and insight. So what are the things I do? That is what I want to talk about, that I keep journaling interesting. Welcome, my name is Abhishek. This is Right Here, Right Now TV, where I talk about journaling, books, and all the other things that help us gain our attention, focus in life. So the first most important thing that I do is to give myself, how do you call it, refill the gumption back into my life. So things we do deplete our gumption, our willpower to journal, and I try to get that inspiration back in some little dips and drabs. The first thing I do to do that is, every now and then, sprinkle among my reading are books that are other people's journals. So I'm reading other people's journals as a part of my inspiration. And the ones that obviously stand out to me, I've talked about him before, is Oliver Sacks. I try to read his books, which all read like his medical journals that he would write about his patients, about his day, and then he's turned them into books. Since then, I've also read John Muir, who wrote about nature and going out, and basically his books are really his journal entries that he wrote while he was out in the Sierras and whatnot. And that was really fantastic for me to read when I visited the Sierras for the first time, and inspired me to take my journal with me on my hikes. So I'll be doing that on the next hike that I go to, and the next vacation that I go to. But reading other people's journals fills me, not with like a voyeuristic way of seeing what they're doing, but it does put you in the room with them. And to me, it is such a real-time way of seeing, okay, this person is seeing something that I know what that is, because I know what the Yosemite Valley looks like, and this is what they're feeling, this is how they're writing about it, this is how they're noticing things. And those little things really inspired me to say, oh, I could be doing this, and that's a new thing for me to try out, right? So Oliver Sacks does this thing where he will write often when he's out on a travel with a large group, and he writes about how he's aloof and writing by himself when there's a group waiting around. And that almost gives me permission to do the same, though be a little more social than that. But again, gives me a glimpse into their life as they have been journaling through their life. The other example that I have is this book here, Chris Fink's Forage Like a Bear. And it is, and by the way, all these books are heavily edited and before they're published, so I understand that they're not just like raw journal entries, they go through an editing process. But this is probably a good example where, Chris Fink, I think he's a professor, and these stories, these are not stories, these are really, they feel like a page and a half of journal entries that he could have written when he came back from a short walk in his neighborhood. And I love reading stuff like this that helps me kind of see the world in a way that another author is seeing, and then helps me get inspired to see my world around me in a way with fresh eyes that maybe starts to feel stale. So that's number one. Number two is using really nice pen and paper. And I fell into the whole fountain pens and lovely stationery when I was starting my journaling practice. And I wrote with fountain pens growing up, so this was kind of natural for me to go to. I associate fountain pens with kind of deep thinking and writing as I used it as a child in school. So I do that. I use that again, for me to keep this interesting. So I have here's a TWSBI VAC 700 with a Franklin Christoph nib on it that I write in my Tomo River journal. This is my long form journal, and I keep the pens on a little cozy holder next to it. And then the journal that I write on every day is my bullet journal that I've talked about before, but for this I keep my Diplomat Arrow that my wife gifted me for my 40th birthday. Wonderful pens, wonderful nibs. I just love sitting down watching how effortlessly the nib will write on these papers. This is a Leuchtturm paper on this bullet journal. A Rhodia paper is fantastic too. So I have a whole collection of different journals with different papers on them that I'll try out from time to time. And that's something that I'm getting to interact with every day. It's a very physical, tactile thing to do, is to put pen to paper and feel the nib flow, feel it smooth. If I turn the pen slightly and it's now grinding a little bit and it's a little is hesitating on the paper, and I can turn it back, and really those senses get alive for me. I think I'm really tuned in to the act of writing the words, the letters that are flowing out when I'm using fountain pens, and it's very different than using pencil or even any other kind of ballpoint or roller ball pens. Those are also great pens to have. But I know that this thing works for me, and I'm basically hacking my brain into making me want to do more writing by having good pen and paper to do the writing in. So that's number two. Now, if you want to fall into this rabbit hole of pens and paper, by all means, there's a ton of YouTubers out there that talk about this. So I'm not that person. I don't think I want to be that person. I'm certainly not into pens and paper as much as a lot of the other people are. Have at it. It's a wonderful but also dangerously deep world that you have been warned if you want to get into journaling and with fancy pens and paper. Again, this is an endless rabbit hole. Okay, that aside. Number three is the way I motivate myself is I love snacks, I love sweets, I love candy. So when I have particularly like maybe a lot of journaling to do, maybe it's the end of the month and I'm having to do my month plan and reflection on the month and so on. Or it's just that I've had a really tough week and I know that I need to sit down somewhere and journal about what has happened and get my thoughts out of my head and onto paper. And I know it's going to be hard, and when that happens, I make my way to a coffee shop. And the change in venue by itself is fantastic. It just gets the gears turning in my head that I'm in a different place than in my home, where when I'm sitting here, I'm also thinking, oh, I've got some laundry to fold, and I've got to vacuum the floors, and I've got to put those books away, and then the dishes need to be unloaded, and so on. It's a lot easier to do those things because the last thing I want to do is get into pen and paper because I have some hard topics to talk about. So I go to a coffee shop and I order coffee, which I love, and I order a pastry, which I also love. So I'll sit down at the coffee and the pastry, and they almost act like paperweights, like anchors. They keep me on the desk, and they keep me writing. And by the time the coffee and the pastry are over, I've got a ton of writing done, and it feels great, and I feel lighter. And then I'll even throw a walk in there, and I'll probably walk to the coffee shop and walk back. And a lot of people cannot really do that from where they live, but I'm very fortunate that I can. So I'll walk there and I'll make it a whole kind of a half a day event for me, and I make it a ritual that way. And that keeps me getting back to the journal when it is sometimes very easy to avoid it and not get into it. So those are the three main ways in which I will maybe trick myself, hack my brain into journaling more and keep that motivation alive. And I'll give you a fourth really wild card here, which is that I didn't think this was going to be huge, but it has turned out to be pretty big, is that I will curate journaling spaces around my house and even outside the house. So what that means is I have a desk. This is the desk that is dedicated for journaling. It is in front of these windows, and I look out, and it's just a beautiful oak tree out there. The lighting is great in the certain times of the day. So this is my writing desk. It's a little bit full with other stuff now, but this is one of my writing desks, and the other is my dining table in the front of the house, where I like to sit down and write, and it's right next to a window. And I set up these writing spaces to make it even more enjoyable to write. That way, the last thing I'm thinking about is I'm so cramped and the table's the wrong height and all those things. When we go on vacations, one of the things I look for in an Airbnb is pictures of where the dining table is, or if there's a writing desk in the room, and is it next to a nice window? Is it a decent height? Is it something flimsy? And we'll often pick an Airbnb that has a nicer, more solid feeling desk next to some open lighting or open windows, than maybe an Airbnb that has a better location, but the desk is really small and tiny or really tall, and one of those bistro tables, which I don't really prefer. I don't find them ergonomic. So that becomes a criteria by which we pick an Airbnb when we travel. So there you go. Those are the ways I keep myself motivated to journal and keep myself keep that fire alive, even when there are other things that are maybe trying to get in the way of it. I hope this helps. Thanks.